I'm extremely lucky to do what I do, to be able to travel the world, look at mining projects, make decisions based on those trips, meet people, add them to my network, hopefully contribute to other people's networks and add value for them. So here we are after 24 hours of traveling, Toronto to Sao Paulo and then Sao Paulo to Salta. We're here. Salta is located in Salta province, and it is at least around 500,000 people, which is, considering where it's located, I think is quite interesting. Today we'll be taking a look at what Salta has to offer culturally, and we'll be talking to VPX David O'Connor, talking about what we're going to see later on in the trip when we make the drive to Diablillos. For those that don't know, Salta's got a history of mining and agriculture, and this is sort of the centerpiece of it. And as you can see from behind me, the Basilica, it's quite a beautiful place. And I think that mining component is only going to get bigger as we move along here into the future. For me, there's no better way to get to know a city and the culture surrounding it than walking it. Being here in Salta, you get a really good feel about how the locals operate on a daily basis, what their routine is. And I can't wait to try some food later on today. I think everybody needs a goal in life. They need something to shoot for. And having that goal and having that sort of process that you put together to shoot for it makes all the difference in taking that next step to take risk in your life and move you towards that goal. For me, it was using the junior resource sector to reach that goal, being comfortable with the risk to a degree, and maybe a comfort with the unknown, which is always unsettling for most people. But when you have a goal in mind, having a sector and something available to you that can actually provide you with upside potential, with some risk, to me was the perfect recipe to get me to where I am today. We're really lucky to have Sam Leong with us. He's the director of AbraSilver. We're extremely lucky to have a director on this trip, and it really speaks to the push towards AbraSilver in their development stage.
I'll take you guys to beautiful church here.
So is it common, like, in terms of people from Buenos Aires, they would come here for a vacation? Or is it sort of vice versa? Like, who's coming here for vacation?
You have some, it is a domestic spot, and you have to think, like, what are the byproduct effects of having superinflation for 10, 20 years?
Argentina has long grappled with political dysfunction and economic crises, marked by cycles of inflation, debt defaults, and IMF bailouts. In 2023, libertarian economist Javier Milei was elected president, pledging radical reforms to combat soaring inflation and revitalize the economy. His proposals include dollarizing the currency and reducing government spending. To date, these measures have stabilized the nation, yet still have an air of risk and uncertainty surrounding them. The world watches closely as Argentina navigates this pivotal moment in its economic history.
When we talk about a company like AbraSilver, I was interested for a couple of reasons. First, it started with the people. Guys like John Miniotis, and there's some association with Altius Minerals and how they were involved, attracted me to the investment at the beginning. It was based on that resource that they had, gold and silver oxide resource, the potential of what that could be if it expanded. And of course, because it was so undervalued, because at the time, Argentina was so discounted by the market. So to me, that risk to reward was well in my favor, and why I was willing to take the jump, invest some money, and make it a significant portion of my portfolio.
What I noticed is it's definitely gotten busier. Yeah. 2 years in, it's gotten busier. I imagine there's probably a bit more exploration for gold and silver after 2 years, and where prices have moved, and more tourists. Definitely more tourists than we noticed in the time that we spent a couple of days so far.
You know, without even being an expert on Argentina's specific economy, I can say, given the geological potential and where Argentina is in the development of their minerals, that a mining industry, a vibrant mining industry, would be one of those ground or baseline level industries that can really propel a country forward. In the junior resource sector, no matter what company you invest in, you're taking risk, whether it's metal price, jurisdiction, the people. All of these factors can have risk associated with them and can be reasons why you lose money. If you put yourself in the best position, so picking the right people, looking at the project from as much of a position of knowledge as that you can, you put yourself in a better position to reap the rewards of taking that risk.
The purpose of Field Notes is to take you along with me to those companies I'm invested in and show you why I think they're worthy of your attention.
G'day, Brian.
David,
How you doing? And you. Welcome to Salta.
Thank you. It was a long 24-hour trip for us.
I'll
last
bet,
night.
yeah.
You've lived in South America for...
Well, I've lived in South America for 32 years now, yeah.
Right, Bolivia, Chile now.
Started off in Bolivia, and when things went south in Bolivia politically,
Yeah.
I moved across to Chile.
And so now you're in Salta.
Now I've been here 5 years, yeah.
And what do you see in the contrast, like in terms of jurisdictional for mining investment? What do you think?
Well, I guess one of the things, one of the guidelines is the Fraser Institute, which Salta in the whole of South America has either been number one or number two,
Right.
including other countries.
Yeah.
Provincial-wise, it's either number one or number two, because
Yeah.
they do Salta by provinces, do South America by provinces, and so it's very good. It's very pro-mining. I mean, we get along well with the Minister of Mines, and
Yeah.
and the government is on our side, trying to promote mining. And this new riggy rule of the new president.
Yes.
That really is bringing in the investment.
So the government clearly sees the advantage of developing mining projects, and that really depends on that development window, right? If your project qualifies.
It's working well. I mean, it works. It just coincidentally happens to be perfect for AbraSilver,
Yeah.
because it's our timing of looking for investment in developing the mine fits in well with the RIGI program.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about more of the geological potential. I think when people talk about mineral exploration, Argentina seems to stand out more and more.
Well, why don't we go and sit somewhere and have a coffee and talk more leisurely?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Dave has experience in Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina with these pore-free epithermal systems. He's the best guy to talk to about the current status of Diablillos and what might be ahead for blue sky exploration.
No, you have to.
So how about the contrast between a high sulfidation system and low sulfidation system?
Here in Salta, we have several high sulfidation systems, which is not an uncommon thing, but pretty uncommon and has not yet been found in abundance in Argentina. And you have the high sulfidation system, which is part of the porphyry complex. So you get a porphyry intrusion, and coming off the porphyry intrusion, you get steeply dipping feeder zones where there's sulfide mineralization. Then you get up into the high sulfidation oxide part of the system. So that every system like that, every high sulfidation system has to have a core. It has to have a progenitor intrusion, which is providing the mineralization and the heat and the acid solutions. Yeah.
So let's talk about Oculto and Jack Zone. Jack Zone is probably one of the best pieces of exploration news that you guys have come across in the last 5 or 6 years since you guys have come together. Talk about the Jack Zone and what you guys have discovered there.
Well, let me generalize and say that it's all a high sulfidation system. Oculto is the core of it, and it's directly beneath Oculto that the porphyry intrusion feeding all of this stuff is located. It seems to be, or it is, that there's a zonation outward from the center where there's gold and silver mineralization in the high sulfidation part, out into silver only, which is the peripheral part of the system. So this is a natural zonation in an epithermal system. So Jack is the peripheral part of the epithermal system with high-grade silver and no gold, whereas Oculto has gold and silver. One great advantage of Oculto Jack is that it is silver and gold only. It's a high sulfidation system within which the oxide material, any lead and zinc or other nasty minerals have been liberated out, have been washed away through oxidization, and the silver and gold is residual. The gold is residual and the silver is concentrated in a concentrated layer. So with contrasting that with the low sulfidation systems, where the lead and the zinc and the silver and the cadmium and all the horrible things are all together, and so your silver equivalent there includes virtually every element that exists on the planet. No, that's unfair. That's unfair. Yeah. I'm with Brian and Sam and the crew, and we're film stars here in the Plaza 9 de Julio, and we've got a huge audience as well looking on at us. It's quite amazing. Do you want to be a film star?
Site visits are one of those X factors that really separates the wheat from the chaff, or the general retail investor and the professional. Site visits aren't something that general retail investors usually get the chance to attend.
So we're at the clinic now, and we're going to get a baseline done on our general health, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygenation level, which is probably the biggest part of it. Going up to an altitude of 4,000 meters, the oxygen is obviously under a lower concentration, and they want to see how everybody is as a baseline compared to how they're going to be up there. And I think it's a good safety precaution.
It's a convoy of SUVs that took off from Salta on the way to Diablillos. The engineering team that's going to be helping with the definitive feasibility study was sort of leading the pack, and we followed up the rear. We're on our way up to site to Diablillos. We just stopped at a sort of a roadside stand area where people are selling, looks like carpets and garments and little trinkets. It's fresh up here. I don't know how high we are yet, but you can definitely tell that we're getting at a higher elevation with how cool it is. So we're driving up just out of the low altitude mountains, hills, whatever you want to call them. Each mountain range has its own sort of characteristics and vegetation. Here, it's definitely the first time I've seen cactus on the side of the road heading up to high altitude. The whole experience never gets old. It's supposed to take around 6 hours, but we stopped along the way, stopping in a number of different little towns and touristy areas. It was amazing to see, and it really gave you good perspective on kind of what's going on, especially talking to some of the local people and finding out that tourism is one of the big drivers of those small little towns, which to me seemed kind of crazy to think, but obviously that's what's going on.
Only 2 minutes, and now other check, and verify it's good.
So we've reached 3,800 meters. We're in San Antonio. Feels a lot like Nevada, besides the homes. Try to put that in my background. Checking our oxygen levels, heart rates, blood pressure. I can tell you, you absolutely do feel the less oxygen up here. I just had a little 2 minutes or 3 minutes one with the oxygen tank, and you feel 100% better. And it's quite an interesting experience for me. First time I've been this high.
You really get into this more rough terrain, and really what they've done is basically cut off the side of this cliff and made a roadway, which, you know, honestly, it's probably a car and a half wide, and there's no guardrail. You're looking down into a valley.
Definitely feel it.
The whole like atmosphere pushing down on that lower level when you're down at sea level, you now have about half
Right.
of that pressure on you right now.
Finally, when you get to site, the landscape looks a lot like I would guess Mars would look like. Took us about 8 hours to get to site. Came here, did the safety debriefing, redid our health check, and then had lunch.
After 6 years of looking at Oculto and jackstones and pictures, here I am on my way up to the summit of Oculto, which sits about 400 to 500 meters above base camp. It's a spectacular view, one which encapsulates perfectly the perspective needed to fully realize where AbraSilver is headed. Being up there, you really feel the altitude, the desolation of the surroundings, yet you're bombarded by a persistent and piercing wind which doesn't let you fully relax into the view. And truly, as an investor, it's times like this that I value the most, and I'm so happy I can share with you. The whole experience is accentuated by the people that are along with me: Sam, Jeremy, Gonzalo, and the Worley engineering team. Listening to their perspectives about what they see and the questions that pop into their minds about the project represent one of those opportunities that you just can't gain via a conference floor or a Zoom call. Without fail, my visit to Diablillos is unmatched in its value to me as an investor.
Jeremy is a mining engineer, and arguably the most important part of the puzzle to be added in this last year. ABRA is on the cusp of completing a definitive feasibility study on their project, which is that last part that is needed before a construction decision close to 2027.
Well, welcome to the Jack Pit, an important part of the AbraSilver growth story.
So you've got a ton of experience in the mining industry with the Lundins, with Kinross, senior mining companies, junior miner now. What attracted you to Diablillos?
Yeah, Diablillos was very intriguing. Went into consulting on my own and wasn't really in a big hurry to jump onto anything. But you know, when my old boss Steve Gatley, who's on the board, who's my boss at Lundin, he said, you know, you should really take a look at this. And when I did take a look at it, it felt very familiar to some other success stories I've seen. You know, the old adage, you know, interest is the path to belief. So as I started looking into it, I thought, well, this is pretty good, and it can't be that good though. So, well, you wouldn't believe it. It's wide open there. There's nothing there. It's just, you just mine it. Of course, first site visit, you know, I had to come here and see it for myself, and you can see it now. Like, here we are. This is Jack. You don't even need a blast jack. It's just free digging, and that's a huge advantage. Topography is in your favor here. Here we have sort of the natural, you know, topography, the valleys that sort of host the tailings facility, but it's beautiful, and there's enough capacity in there to host more than, you know, the current reserve. So lots of optionality that I recognize in reading the technical report and coming to the site, getting more and more excited. With us having a project that's near construction, we're going to hit it. You know, that we have a plan for a final investment decision by the middle of next year. It's a game changer having the new sort of economic regime in Argentina. So we're in a stable macroeconomic environment. There's a real energy in the country, and you probably feel it here in Argentina. People are optimistic.
Drill core is the basis of everything at a mining exploration and development project. Today, we're going to look at some core. This isn't your typical exploration core. This is actually geotechnical core, but it's just as important. Rodrigo is going to take us through what this core specifically is all about.
I gotta tell you that in next May, there's gonna be 20 years that I've been involved with this project. Normally in a geotechnical hole, what you care is about logging the fracture, the minerals that are contained in the fractures, and how many fractures do you have per meter. Then you take that information and you build up a numerical model that simulates a possible collapse or not. And depending on that are the parameters that we use for designing the final design. This is the hydrothermal breccia that we have intercept in this hole. Those open spaces that I'm pointing right now are the one that is called baggy-silic alteration, and the baggy-silic alteration is the alteration that you want to have in a high sulfidation deposit like Diablillos it is. It's the typical alteration that will contain the minerals like gold, silver, and silver sulfur salts, and roughly half of the mineral reserves and resources of this project are contained in this kind of alteration. The more information you get, the more understanding of your deposits, and that allows you to develop a better and efficient exploration.
This is a hydrothermal breccia with silicification alteration. What is the position for the porphyry? Because that this porphyry have the maybe 11 million years. In the last 11 million years, we have the different movements, mountains, and generate a fold and different movement in this fold. And this hand maybe is here, maybe is here in different position. The focus is what is the position that the hand now is the example for simple example. For example, here the alteration is TSXV alteration in clast. We have a hydrothermal breccia with different clast provide that different rocks, box rocks, porphyry rocks, remove it that only breccia rocks. So this expression is that this class is a class from porphyry with alteration for porphyry, but the upper zone porphyry, sericitic zone. So when I interpret this, I interpret that I have the point for porphyry, but I don't know how many meters below this. But I have the star system. All the information is interpreted and used for decide what is the better position. Obviously that we have the very good holes and you have the condemnation holes. All is good. For geologists, all the information is very good. This point is a very good example for porphyry system because we have our oxide mineralization, alunite, jarosite. Obviously, in the past, this mineralization was a pyrite. But the important here is that, for example, here we have a stockwork with deep veins. The generate deep veins only generates in porphyry system. All this information is a very good example that the porphyry system exists in this zone and have the mineralization, have the alteration. We need to explore more for define where provide this and how many deepers provide these veins and how many meters we have mineralization in oxides and how many meters we have started sulfide mineralization. For example, these micro veins that you have now is jarosite, but previously was maybe alunite, and previously maybe it was pyrite. Here we have other very good sample. This is a typical veins, silicified veins. When you mapping here, you study that is only one veins in one direction or have the change in direction. All these indicate the position, the distance with the center of porphyry.
The site visit is always two-pronged. The project, and then those people I'm going to meet at the site visit, those relationships that may or may not be formed, but at the very least, just listening to them and finding out what they're looking at and how I can incorporate that into my process.
It was a great visit to Diablillos. I think that it exceeded my expectation in terms of where AbraSilver is in their development. The local management on site are doing a fantastic job pushing the project towards feasibility study and ultimately that construction decision. John Miniotis is the CEO of AbraSilver, and he's the most important guy to be talking to on this trip. John represents that communication link between the market and the company, and for me is always that first source for an update on a monthly basis to understand where the company is and sort of where they're going.
Thank you so much for having us this week. So far it's been incredible being to site and now getting the chance to talk to you. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's our pleasure having you here in beautiful Salta, getting to enjoy the scenery here. And yeah, thanks so much for it.
It's been quite the journey. For me, I started off as an Aethon investor, and that sort of switched into AbraSilver, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I think, really we're just on the precipice. I think something really special.
Yeah, no, really thinking back, I'd say it seems almost like a lifetime ago now, those 5 years. I mean, back in 2019 when we were merging Aethon with ABRA at that time, difficult market conditions. Silver price was not doing particularly well. We were, at the time of the merger, less than a $10 million market cap. And I definitely remember, one of the biggest challenges we've ever overcome as a company was raising that first $1.5 million that we needed to really kick off the drill campaign, the initial drill program. And that enabled us to we calculated with the 1.5 million that we were going to raise, if we stretched every penny to the max, we could drill a total of 6 holes.
Yeah.
And so those initial 6 holes really helped set up the foundation, really prove to the world that, look, this project is very, very unique, something very special. I think we got very, very fortunate with those first 2 holes that we drilled back in the day.
Yeah.
I think we encountered 600 grams of silver and 20 grams of gold over 10 to 20 meter thicknesses.
Yeah.
So exceptional grades right off the bat. And yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, really, ever since those days. Just continuously working on improving, the existing resource, growing it, and to where we are today. As you mentioned, it's super, super exciting when you look out the next 12 months.
So let's talk about the development over the last 5 years. You guys have made huge steps from where you were in 2019 to where you are now in 2025. Can you just go through what that development has been and how you did it?
Yeah, no, it's really been quite a gradual transition, step by step. I think overall, when you think about exploration, it's very similar to, putting together a big complex puzzle, only all the puzzle pieces are buried deep underground and you don't know what the final picture looks like. You don't know how big this ultimate puzzle could be.
Yeah.
And so, we knew from the initial data that there was already, a serious amount of silver and gold there at the main occulto deposit. And so with additional work, reviewing the historical information, reinterpreting the geology between Dave and his team, doing additional geophysics, etc., we had the confidence that this is much, much bigger than, the resource estimate at that time. And so we were stepping out gradually, year by year, increasing the resource size at the main occulto deposit. And I think what really helped transform the company was a couple years ago, finding a new zone. So that new high-grade Jack zone where nobody ever thought there was silver mineralization there. It was an area that was just flat, no indications, no outcrops that there's mineralization there. So that really opened up our eyes, and now we're looking at what's beyond occulto within our existing concession that we still have yet to uncover. So we're, just piecing together this puzzle. It's obviously a lot larger than we ever expected it could be. But no, it's just, step by step, putting all the pieces together here.
So driving to site, that was probably one of the best ways to go as opposed to flying. You really got a feel for, what's along the way, the communities that are impacted, stopping to go to the restroom, get a coffee, those sorts of things. What's your gauge on the impact of a mining operation such as Diablillos when it goes into construction? How's that going to impact those local communities?
Yeah, I'd say this is clearly going to be a large-scale mine in the future, going to employ hundreds and hundreds of people here. So the impact on the local community is going to be overwhelmingly positive. And as you saw in terms of the landscape, there's not much in terms of other alternative land uses at site. There's no agricultural opportunities nearby. We're surrounded by large-scale lithium projects as well. But the one thing that's actually working out quite a bit in our favor is the recent downturn in lithium prices has, stalled some of these companies from moving forward from potential expansion opportunities or bringing on new lithium projects in the area. And so there's certainly been a slowdown overall in that part of Salta. And so it really helps out with drill rig availability for us as we're looking to, increase the drilling activities at site, or even in terms of us attracting labor in the region. I think Dave has a very good sense of the impact we're having with the local communities.
Well, you stopped on the way at Pastos Grandes, which is a community of 160 people plus or minus, Yeah. And Pastos Grandes is about 1.5 hour drive north of Diablillos. And we have been helping them a lot, as have the other mining companies, but we've been focusing on roping them into what we're doing. In other words, we've been helping fund them to acquire water trucks, for example, and then we rent the water trucks from them. We set up a bakery for them. Now they bake bread for our project. And we set up a laundry for them, so now they wash the sheets of the... So they are part of the mining community as well as being their own little community. So obviously they're very interested in the project going ahead.
The resource business isn't easy to always understand, and there are multiple facets that you have to understand to really, or apply to be successful. I think we're on the cusp of a bull market in the precious metals sector. And looking back on my career, it's been these bull markets that have really propelled me forward and truly changed my life.
Good morning, it's day 5. We're at the airport in Salta, heading to Buenos Aires. It was a great 5 days, visiting the project and walking around and getting to know some of the people with AbraSilver within the town of Salta after we visited site. Now we're headed to Buenos Aires. We're going to take 3 days there to get well acquainted with the culture and go from there. Travel is an absolute must for me. On a yearly basis, I have to do it as a part of my routine as an investor in the space. The investments mean that much more to me. It's the primary way I make money, and I have to do these site visits. I have to go to conferences to make sure I'm maximizing my ability to make profit. To me, it's an absolute necessity for being a successful junior mining sector investor.
After a trip like this, you don't walk away with certainty. You walk away with perspective. You've seen the ground, you've looked at the data, That's the work, testing the story against reality. Risk isn't the enemy, it's the terrain. You can't eliminate it, but you can try to understand it, and in fact use it to your advantage if it fits within your framework. They call it due diligence, but in reality it's clarity, learned the hard way. On-site, in-country, through conversation, through observation, through trust. What kinds of risks are you willing to take? The ones you've studied, the ones where the team is aligned, the ones where the potential for discovery is real, and the people guiding you understand the land better than you ever could. Argentina forces you to think that way. The scale here, the distance between things, the complexity, it doesn't let you be casual. But that's also the beauty of it. Travel pulls you out of the noise, out of your inbox. You see the real work, the real people. You get a better sense for what's real and what's just momentum disguised as progress. In the end, it always comes down to the same three things: real discovery, good people, and solid planning. The more time you spend in the field, the better you get at spotting them and trusting those who know the ground beneath your feet.